Welcome to a new video with the electric trucker. I just came from Turkey and am now in Romania with my Mercedes eActros 600. It has a 621 kilowatt-hour LFP battery, perfect for long-haul trips. This week I head toward Germany, but then straight on to Portugal. The schedule is really tight. I had a bit of a struggle with the charging station here at the rest stop, but the truck is at 87% now. Time for the first leg of this week. My plan for today is to make it to the Romanian border, then drive straight through Hungary, and eventually stop somewhere in Austria for the night. That makes the first target the Romanian-Hungarian border. I've already booked the daily toll for Romania. It's really simple. But in Hungary, you always have to book it in 2-hour segments, so it makes sense to stop at the border. There's also a charging station right there. I had wondered why there are so many detours in Romania, whether maybe the highway was blocked, but it turns out the highway just isn't fully built yet. Heading west, there's a stretch where traffic is redirected onto local roads. Some people ask why I sometimes drive 90 kilometers per hour. That's because abroad, trucks are often allowed to go faster. On these long trips over thousands of kilometers, it makes a big difference whether you drive 80 or 90. If everything goes smoothly, you can cover almost 100 kilometers more per day. For routes within Germany, it doesn't matter. Usually you just run a day shift and unload on the other end, with plenty of traffic jams in between. But here, or when you're driving through France, Spain and Portugal, the distances are massive, and then it does make a difference. And the truck is still very efficient at 90. I've crossed into Hungary and I'm now parked at this small rest stop taking a short break. You saw it on the way here already. Hungary is pretty wild when it comes to tolls. If you don't have a toll box, you can only book a route ticket. And that's not valid for a whole day, but just for 120 minutes from the time of booking. At the border, I pulled over, took a 15-minute break, and booked myself a route ticket long enough to finish my first driving period. That brought me to this little rest stop. I can't charge here, but that's fine. I've planned the next leg to Budapest, and that's still within the 2-hour window. I still have 6 hours of driving left, and after the next 1.5-hour leg, I'll have 4.5 hours remaining, so I can use my full 10 hours today. From Budapest, I should also be able to make it into Austria within another 2 hours. And here's a little life hack. When booking, don't bother typing in rest stops or addresses. It's hard enough with Hungarian names. Just open Google Maps, right-click on the spot, copy the GPS coordinates, and paste them straight into the booking system. I forgot to factor in one thing today. I left pretty late because I had to take a 45-hour weekly rest break, so I couldn't get on the road early. That means the stop I'm making now is also really late in the day. Lots of truckers are already settling in for their daily rest by now. The spot itself is fine, but the tricky part is that I'll probably have to drop the trailer for a moment, since I can't get in there properly. That's always a bit of a dilemma. I made it to Budapest, and just as expected, it was a bit of a challenge. First problem, no parking space at all. I pulled up in front of 2 truck drivers and gave a quick knock. I asked if they were taking a long or short break. I told him I only needed an hour. He said it was fine, so I could drop the trailer there. The second challenge was the charging itself. It's a small charging park with just 4 stations. I had to squeeze by really close, line up on the right side since the charging port is further forward, raise the air suspension, and then pull all the way in. Just to clarify, this post was already damaged before I got there, but it really was a millimeter job. Luckily, the side charger was free, otherwise it wouldn't have worked at all. The effort paid off though. I'm charging at 346 kilowatts, which gives me more than enough to drive another 4.5 hours non-stop. I finished my charging stop in Hungary, and this rest area is packed. It's about 2 hours and 10 minutes to the Austrian border, which means I'll have to stop once more to book another stretch ticket. But hopefully, this will be the last Hungarian ticket I'll need for a long, long time. I just booked the final ticket. Luckily, I already wrote down the GPS coordinates, so it went pretty quickly. But if there's no parking spot available, you'd technically have to keep driving without a toll, which would mean a fine. The whole system is pretty awkward. I have to stop right in the middle of the road with my hazard lights on, blocking the rest area for 2 minutes. Who comes up with this stuff? And of course, at this time of day, everything's packed. I'm back in Austria. Funny enough, at the border, the trucks actually got through faster than the cars, since the cars were the only ones being checked. That's not what I've been used to the past few days. And right after crossing, you're greeted by a line of wind turbines. And with Austria's mix of hydro and wind power, the electricity is green again. In Turkey, the grid mix wasn't nearly as clean. You could see that in the charging data last time. But even there, it was always better than diesel. The worst case I saw was around 35% CO2 savings compared to a diesel truck. Now I'm closer to 80 or 90% CO2 savings every day, which is massive. That's exactly why the truck makes so much sense from a sustainability perspective. I'm just outside Vienna, and over there you can see a massive refinery. You need those to produce diesel fuel. What's crazy is that refining a single liter of diesel already takes about 0.3 to 0.5 kilowatt hours of electricity. So, if you're talking about 25 liters of diesel, that's already 12.5 kilowatt hours of energy gone before the truck has even moved an inch. The energy is just consumed even with today's power mix. To put that in perspective, with that same amount of energy, this electric truck, which uses about 0.8 kilowatt hours per kilometer, has already driven nearly 20 kilometers. That whole upstream energy cost is often left out of the conversation, but it matters just as much as when people question where the electricity for EVs comes from. Diesel doesn't grow on trees either, and its production chain has a huge footprint before it even gets into the tank. That was a really successful day. I've driven 792 kilometers. And what's that over there? A high power charger for trucks. The truck is charging at 360 kilowatts. This spot is ideal. Tons of chargers, so you can easily stay overnight. Up front, there's also charging points for cars, and the rest area is very modern. They have a self-service bistro with vending machines, which I'll check out soon, and really nice sanitary facilities. I just used the toilets, they're top-notch, and there are showers too. But now it gets a bit frustrating. This spot is run by EVN, and it costs 75 cents per kilowatt hour, plus a blocking fee of 10 cents per minute after the 61st minute. If you're standing here for 9 or 11 hours, it gets insanely expensive. At 75 cents, truck driving is no longer economical. I might as well go on holiday. Through their app, it's 55 cents, and with a €5 subscription, 49 cents. That's better, but still not great. The app itself is really old school and looks like it's 10 years old. I tried to sign up, went through the website, made an account, and then it asked for a customer number. And then I found out that this tariff only works if you're a household electricity customer. Basically, this company is stuck in the past. You can run a city wallbox like that, but not a commercial truck charging park on a transit route through Eastern Europe for truck drivers from all over Europe. Totally impractical. Obviously, none of them are household customers. Unfortunately, this operator isn't useful at all. It's a shame, because they've built a huge charging park here and put in a lot of effort, but operationally, they're just not prepared. The cheapest alternative I found via roaming partners is the MAN Charge and Go card at 65 cents per kilowatt hour. I need to charge here because of time pressure, but it's disappointing that it's handled this way. Honestly, there should be a warning in the eTrucker app telling people not to charge here. Quickly on yesterday's charging session, don't get me wrong, I think it's awesome what's been built. But it's really important that operators understand the unit economics of these truck charging stations. I charged 530 kilowatt hours there, and if they're still thinking in household tariff logic, like giving someone a €5 discount for being a residential customer, that just doesn't work. A typical two-person household uses around 2,000 kilowatt hours per year. I charge that in a week. I'll contact EVN to see how they plan to handle this. Maybe I'm a bit triggered because I really can't stand situations where you're powerless. In today's world, you need digital solutions that let people help themselves immediately. Technically, everything worked perfectly. The rest stop itself was great, top-notch sanitary facilities, showers included for €1. One highlight I'd recommend every truck charging park operator: install a fresh water tap or fountain. On the road, you need a lot of drinking water, and that is my favorite feature. They also had fresh baked goods. The baker arrived in a Renault Kangoo, plugged in a charging cable from the bistro box, and charged while restocking the pastries. Yesterday went really well with around 800 kilometers. I didn't expect such smooth progress through Hungary and Romania, but now I'm heading to Wörth am Rhein, that's where the cargo needs to go, and I'll swap trailers for the next delivery to Portugal. On the way, I'll try to pick up Krumelix and drop off Ladolix. Those are today's two little challenges. In Wörth am Rhein, I can charge for 25 cents net, and it's 620 kilometers away, just doable within my 9 hours of driving time. Since I can charge there to 100%, the most economical strategy is to drive slowly and recharge overnight, so today's going to be a relatively relaxed day. I took a short rest in Mühldorf and picked up Krumelix. We're reunited again. Now I'm heading to Schal-E, who lent me that mobile DC charger, which I didn't even needed, because the charging infrastructure in Turkey turned out to be much more relaxed than I expected. Quick pit stop in Augsburg. I just dropped off Ladelix. Dalag is back too. I rolled into the yard and there are 16 battery-supported charging stations from Schal-E which can be rented.
They're heading to a racing event, the Opel ADACE Rally, this coming weekend. They're being prepped here with a 16-amp three-phase connection, and in the back there's an electric Volvo C40 with a 250 kilowatt-hour battery trailer. That's used when filming a movie or as a buffer for an event.
And here's Ladelix, who I had with me, that runs with 44 kilowatts at 63 amps. Then there's the smaller one with 22 kilowatts at 32 amps. And the big one with 88 kilowatts at 125 amps. With that, you can completely recharge any truck during an 11-hour break. If you've got requests for Schal-E, whether short-term rentals or long-term, just check out their website. Everything went as planned, and since I needed a short break anyway, I've now got enough driving time to make it all the way to Wörth am Rhein. The folks at Schal-E really know their stuff. They even have their own hazardous goods officer. I had actually taken a hazardous goods license about half a year ago to be able to transport a battery-supported charging station, but apparently they've changed the UN classification number. They managed to get it adjusted so that these battery charging stations now only require a hazardous goods briefing and no full license anymore. It's really nice to have Krumelix back with me. It makes the whole trip twice as much fun. I'm at the Daimler truck plant and it's pretty busy here, so let's see where I can park. I've already unloaded the trailer, and of course, I'm topping up the battery now. At the unloading spot, they actually had a charging cable hanging down from the ceiling with some kind of frame, so they can even charge while loading or unloading. And over there, I've already spotted my next trailer, a silver one without any branding. Charging won't take much longer, then I'll repark. That makes today a success, because tomorrow morning I can head straight toward Portugal. Not sure which exact route I'll take, I'll just start driving. You need at least 3 days anyway, and the first day isn't too exciting since it's mostly crossing France, which I already know fairly well. So I'm feeling optimistic. By the way, how's your paw doing?
Sehr gut. Bravo.
We're starting into the day and work time is already running. I've done my departure check and hooked up the new trailer. The destination this time is Lisbon. First leg is through France, and I'll be following the Milence charging parks along the way, since they line up perfectly with my route. In the eTrucker app, I've already marked them, and I can just export the route to my TomTom navigation. We're also working on adding a new feature in the app where you can set your daily driving goal, and it will automatically suggest the best charging parks to use for your mandatory rest breaks. That should make planning faster and smoother. I noticed that on this stretch, the French and German highways run almost parallel. Once my tollbox is finally installed in Lire, there should be discounts for electric trucks in France. But since I'm still stuck with the normal ticket system for now, it makes way more sense to stay on the German side with no tolls here. It's just more economical. At first, I was a bit skeptical, but this place is huge and absolutely truck-friendly. The roads are wide enough, and it's not just chargers here, which would have already been great, but also proper drive-through charging stations. That's how it should be done. Well done, Ionity. Krumelix is doing well, and I'm really impressed with this charging park. Looks like it's brand new. There are actually 4 bays here where you can charge a car with a trailer or even a truck. It's a little tight, but that's just normal in France. They've got multiple 400 kilowatt and 350 kilowatt chargers here, and there's even a special one, Ionity's 1000th HPC charger in France. It looks great, and today it's making lots of revenue. I think Ionity is starting to learn and plan more hybrid charging parks that can handle trucks too. It doesn't even take that much more space, and the revenue potential is huge. For me though, it's a short stop and the battery was already pretty full, so after just 32 minutes and around 200 kilowatt hours, I'm topped up again. I'm hauling for Siemens again. Their fast chargers are currently being manufactured in Portugal, and the distribution hub for all of Europe is in Halle, Germany. I've got 15 tons of production material on the trailer heading down to Lisbon. On the way back, I'll be loading up fast chargers to bring back to Halle, where they're distributed across Europe. Pretty cool setup, and it doubles as a test run. This route actually runs regularly, I think at least once a week, always with a truck back and forth. Trains or ships just aren't flexible enough for the tight production schedules. The question is, can it be done electrically? And of course I say yes. But you have to try and prove it. And honestly, I'm not super prepared this time. I haven't even downloaded the Portuguese maps yet. I can actually finish today's run within 9 hours, so I don't even need the full 10. And you should always save that extra hour for days when you really need it, like if you're just short of reaching a good charging spot. When I first started driving trucks, I'd already burned through my 10-hour days by Tuesday, driving without any strategy. But over time, you get smarter about it, because later in the week you'll kick yourself if you got no time left when it matters. I'm done for the day. I'm in southern France at my lens, and the truck is plugged in. 4 chargers, lots of bays, lots of prep, a big area. But the exit up front is super tight. Krimelix has already explored everything and had his dinner. He's doing great and can run around here. As a dog owner, that's really nice because you can just let him roam. At a regular rest stop, it's always risky with other trucks, but here it's more relaxed. The sanitary facilities are still temporary, but everything's really good. There are even towels, and the coffee machine is working again. Tomorrow morning, I'll symbolically grab a coffee and pay for a drink. If nobody buys anything, Mylens will eventually say, "We can cut this, no one buys, but if someone does buy, it makes the internal discussion a lot harder. And I appreciate this charging park, so I'll make sure to buy something." The charger still has that background image that makes it hard to read the values. Not important at all, just wanted to mention it. And I drove 740 kilometers in exactly 8 hours and 59 minutes today. Perfect timing. France is easygoing. Traffic was light, and tomorrow morning will continue. These are the easy, enjoyable long-haul days as an electric trucker. Good morning. I left just after 6, grabbed a coffee at Mylens, and here's the plan. It's 1,600 kilometers and 21 hours of driving time to Lisbon. That's totally doable. In the Mercedes navigation, I've got this route preview, which is basically the route I would have planned myself. You could drive a bit longer in Spain before heading into Lisbon or enter Portugal earlier. I think driving through Portugal will be more fun, so that's probably what I'll do. The nav plans 2 charging stops, but I can't see the exact spots. Still, it's good that it's planning stops at all, but it's not based on driving and rest regulations. It just thinks that at 10% battery I want to charge. That works for a car, but for a truck you need recommendations every 4.5 hours or less. I'm heading further down France first, where there's another Mylens location. And after that, it gets interesting because I'll be stopping at charging stations I haven't been to yet. First short charging stop of the day. I'm back at a Mylens charging park. I've driven just about 220 kilometers so far, but the truck is fully charged again. I also took a shower here. Definitely appreciate that. Now I'm just wondering if I can actually get out of here. Let's try. Nope, doesn't work. How are you supposed to get out here? This is the real truck experience at Mylens. I'm just wondering why they don't simply fully open the gate. I have to reverse all the way to get out of here. Yoo! As a trucker, your left arm can get sunburned, so it's really nice that you can pull the curtain and still have full visibility with the cameras. I wouldn't close it completely, but it's definitely cool to have some sun protection. I've already passed Toulouse, and I had picked a perfect truck charging stop, but I wouldn't make it there by 3 minutes. Luckily, along the highway, there's also an Ionity location. I can make that by 5 minutes. It's a small rest stop, and Ionity is right next to the truck spots. By the time I arrive, I'll have already driven 600 kilometers and still have 3 hours of driving time left. The truck is still very efficient, even with the faster speeds here in France. A small, relaxing charging stop in cozy France. I'm sitting in the shade, observing the situation. The guy over there is really angry. There are 4 chargers, and luckily one is still free, so I'm not blocking anyone. Apparently, he's not interested in charging at 50 kilowatts. He yelled at his wife too. I thought driving electric would be relaxing, but apparently not always. When I arrived, every charger was free, and 5 minutes later, everything was full. And this is one of the French locations that has no height restriction at the front. I could bring him over the edge if I walk over and ask, "Hey, isn't that a disabled spot? Are you allowed to park there?" I think he'd kill me. But it's funny that a 50 kilowatt charger is marked as a disabled parking spot. I've never seen that before. Sometimes you see those videos on social media of EVs queuing and not being able to charge, and then all the hate comments say electric cars won't catch on. But it's always at Ionity stations on the highway because their prices are so attractive. Drawing the conclusion from that there aren't enough chargers is nonsense. It would be like seeing a huge queue at Aldi on a Saturday morning when there is a big sale and claiming there aren't enough supermarkets or food in Germany. It's now Thursday afternoon, and it's 12 hours and 37 minutes to get to Lisbon at 85 kilometers per hour. I'm using my 10-hour driving time today, so I can still drive for 3 hours. Realistically, I'd get to Lisbon Friday evening, but I'm not going to rush. It's no fun hurrying, and I don't unload until Monday anyway. I might take another pause and then roll in on Saturday and find a nice spot for the weekend. Still, that's a solid pace. Vienna to Lisbon in 5 days. Even a diesel truck would struggle to match that. I'm now in Spain, done for the day, and I wanted to give a quick recap. I arrived safely, and the view here in northern Spain is amazing. Out of the 10 hours driving, I literally have just 1 minute left, totally maxed out. I had to make 2 stops to fully use the 10 hours because with 1 stop, you can only get 9 hours. I plugged in at both, once at my lens and once at Ionity, paying 39 cents net and 33 cents gross, so quite economical. And I drove 833 kilometers with an average speed of around 84 kilometers per hour. Traffic was good in France and Spain, and the e-truck handled it perfectly. The wildest part? The battery wasn't fully charged and consumption was only 87 kilowatt hours at that speed. At Ionity, I charged 10 minutes longer, so the battery isn't empty and still showing 360 kilometers of range or 58%. I could have even skipped 1 stop. I pulled into this rest stop just planning to take a regular break, and sure enough, there's a charging park right here. I can easily plug in and not even block a charger bay. These are older 350 kilowatt chargers. When I was in Portugal 2 years ago, Repsol was a real pain. Like the OMV app in Romania, you couldn't download it with a German Google account. That's improved. Now you can install it, but you have to register. And the best rate you'll find is 54 cents per kilowatt hour gross. If I were in a rush, I'd definitely charge here. But since Ionity tomorrow is only 37 cents gross, I'll just optimize costs and skip it. Infrastructure is no longer the problem. It's pricing we need to talk about. With a car, you can kind of ignore economics. People in Germany love their cars and will pay whatever, whether it's diesel or electricity. If you're going to grandma's, it doesn't matter if charging costs 5 euros per kilowatt hour, you'll still go. Sure, you'll grumble, but you'll go. For e-trucks, it's different. If charging isn't economical, it can actually make more sense to give the driver a week off and park the truck instead of running at a loss. That's the reality. Right now, depot charging and the current rates still work fine, but we urgently need to talk about setting limits. For example, the Austria charging park with that 75 cents per kilowatt hour. No way you can recommend anyone to go there. 54 cents gross is still manageable, but anything beyond that becomes a serious problem for the business case. I love Spain. For cars, it's not always ideal. You often end up in the middle of nowhere with no bathrooms or gas station. But for a truck driver, it's a dream. Just look at this. Another massive charging park. It's pretty quiet here. Very peaceful. Over there is a charging park from Vinea, a Spanish operator. It's brand new, but not open yet. I parked like this since no one's around, and charging works fine at 346 kilowatts. My plan now? I'll stop at an Ionity charger right before the Portuguese border. Then I'll decide, either drive straight through or start working with the Portuguese charging network. One issue I often run into with the eActros is when I'm parked sideways, I have to angle the truck to make the cable reach. So I'm thinking of bringing along a little toolkit. Operators probably won't love to hear this, but I'm not damaging anything. It's literally just a single screw to remove the cable tensioner. If you take that out, the cable becomes a lot longer. I think in an emergency that could be a pretty solid workaround. Now it's time for a coffee, and it's beautiful driving through Spain. I really like the country. Actually, I like all the countries I usually travel through, except for the Hungarian toll system. That one's burned into my memory. I've already looked up camper spots around Lisbon, and there are some pretty cool ones. I've been to Portugal before, and charging there works a bit differently than in other countries. I had to figure that out myself when I once drove there with my Tesla. Suddenly it showed 0 chargers, which makes you think there aren't any. But that's not true. Charging infrastructure in Portugal has been coordinated centrally by the government through a company called Mobi, which I think is 100% state-owned. They were tasked with organizing the rollout, sometimes building charge points themselves, but mostly coordinating with operators who had to meet certain requirements. It was all centralized, which made it very bureaucratic for private operators, so not much has happened recently. Still, there is a nationwide network, but mostly with 50 and 100 kilowatt chargers and lots of AC points. When it comes to apps, you always need a contract. You can't just pay by credit card. One of them is the Mio app, which is actually really nice. Great user experience, reliable, works smoothly. You just download it, add your payment method, and then you can access the Portuguese network. Of course, all the disadvantages I just mentioned are there, but there are also upsides. The prices are pretty good, and they even have dynamic pricing. Plus, the app has a community feature with ratings, feedback, and comments on charging stations. I wanted to set it up with my company account instead of my private one, but the SMS for verification never arrived. So I'll still have to figure that out. That's the main reason why charging in Portugal can be tricky. You can definitely drive there with an EV, no problem, but don't be surprised if you need to download a new app at the border. Things are being liberalized now with the new EU regulation, which also enforces accessibility. That means in the future roaming and ad hoc payments will be available. My last charging stop in Spain is super relaxed since I'm filling the battery all the way up. It's a small charging park, already prepared for 6 chargers, but only 2 are installed. Even with both of us charging at the same time, we're still getting the full 350 kilowatts. The guy next to me is also from Germany. There was also a truck driver here with a refrigerated truck heading from Portugal to Germany, and he recognized me. At this station there's nothing going on, so the 3 of us had a nice chat. It's such a great spot, plenty of space, easy to drive around and pull in. Spain really is a dream. There aren't that many chargers, but the ones that are here are perfectly placed, they all work, and that makes it amazing. We've made it to Portugal. That's another country I can check off the list that I've reached with the electric truck. And why did the truck stop right behind the border? Because he has to adjust his tachograph. The newer trucks don't need to bother with that anymore. I've got 4 hours and 52 minutes left to the destination, so technically I could already call it a day, but I'll drive another 2 or 3 hours. Now my day is over. The truck is parked, rest period has started. It's 17:32 on my clock, but since Portugal is 1 hour behind, it's actually 16:32 local time, so not late at all. Tomorrow I've still got a few hours left to drive. I'm parked all alone, and over there is a 150 kilowatt Alpatronic charger, 35 cents per kilowatt hour ad hoc via app, plus a 17-cent start fee. Pretty cheap actually. Time to clear something up with a little unboxing. Lots of you have been waiting to see what smartphone I bought. Some of you guessed it right. The Fairphone 6 and a finger strap. Here's the phone. It's really light, looks great in forest green. I'll set it up properly on the weekend. But here's the deal. It's a sustainably made phone. That means fair wages for workers, responsible sourcing of materials, and most importantly, it's modular. You can swap out the cameras, battery, display, USB-C port, speakers, backplate with just a little screwdriver. It's designed for long life, with 5 years of warranty and up to 8 years of software support. Spec-wise, it's not the top flagship, but that's not the point. This one is all about sustainability, and I think that makes it a worthy successor to my current phone. I like products like this because I see every purchase as a vote for the kind of companies we want to support, and I'd love to see more companies like Fairphone out there. And here's the strap. With just 2 screws, I can mount the backplate and add this finger loop. My favorite feature is Fairphone Moments. With 1 button press, you can hide apps, like social media. Perfect when you want to disconnect in the evening and not get flooded with endless scrolling. I'm getting closer and closer to Lisbon. The timing works out since I'm just about to hit the limit of my weekly driving hours. Truck drivers are allowed a maximum of 56 hours per week, but across 2 weeks combined, you can't go over 90 hours, which averages to 45 per week. Last week, I didn't drive that much, but today the tachograph showed me that I've only got about 4.5 hours left. That's fine since I'll be there in about 1.5 hours. But it also means that next week I'll only be allowed 42 hours of driving. Otherwise, I'd exceed the 90-hour limit. So the schedule actually works out. I'll make it to Lisbon just in time. If I had to stop earlier in the middle of nowhere, it wouldn't be as nice as rolling straight into Lisbon and stay by the sea. But the Mercedes display isn't very smart. It only tells whether you've got a 9-hour or 10-hour day available, but it doesn't consider the weekly limit. That's something I'd really like to see shown, because I bump into that restriction pretty often. We talk a lot with charging point operators because of the eTrucker app, and one of them said he'd like to open the charging park at night for trucks to make revenue, but a big pain point at the moment is stolen cables. For operators, it's a huge problem. Stations stop working, and cable replacement is expensive. He'd love to have a trucker overnight who'd basically watch the charging park, because thieves would be less likely to come. I actually think that's a great idea. A trucker earning extra as live security. You can't record video like a Tesla, but parking the truck as a bit of security could really help. Up ahead is the big Siemens plant, and security already knows I can just drop the trailer. The rest will be handled on Monday. Till then, I'll drive on solo and see where I end up for tonight. I've arrived, checked in, the security guard is helping out, there's the DC charger I'll be using Monday, plus lots of AC wall boxes. Now I'll drop the trailer. I made it here with 280 kilometers of range left. I also did a little weekend shopping at a Lidl, and there's my truck waiting. Not a lot bigger than the SUVs around here. Now I'll take it to the beach. And just as we talked about earlier, here the cables were cut too. It's sabotage of the energy transition and of other people's property. I hope the industry finds a solution for this quickly. I could spend my weekly rest period somewhere in the city center, but that's far from ideal. So I drove down to the coast, and I'll show you where I'll be staying the next few days, along this stunning Portuguese coastline. It's sunset, and the location is amazing. You can swim here. There are steps down to the beach. There is a small beach bar below and a restaurant above with great music. This spot is very popular with both locals and tourists. And there it is, my giant camper, the eActros 600. Moving it here was a bit of a challenge because the streets are off-road, but it all worked out. I parked way at the back in the last row so I wouldn't bother anyone and because I can view above all of them anyway. Such a trip lets you feel that long-haul trucker romance, which makes the job so interesting. A huge thank you for watching. I'll be enjoying the sunset here and wish you a wonderful evening or rest of the day, wherever you are.